We are your home theater and AV questions answered. This is AV Rant. Want your home theater or AV question answered by Tom and Rob? Send it to question@avrant.com. Welcome to AV Rant. I'm Tom Mantry, and I'm here with
Rob H.
Don. First up, Don says thanks for answering his previous question about his new theater room that's still under construction. It'll be a little bit over 18 feet long, about 15 and a half feet wide with a 10-foot ceiling. He's keeping his Marantz SR7010 receiver as well as his PSB Gold Towers, PSB Center, and PSB Bipole surround speakers, and the subs will be his pair of SBS SB2000 sealed box 2000s, which we said should be fine for his roughly 2,800 foot cubic whatever room.
Cubic foot.
Whatever. I did not get much sleep last night. One of his main concerns has been figuring out exactly where he should position his seats, because we've described how that also determines where his Atmos speakers should go. First, he'll continue to use a 65-inch plasma TV, but he plans to upgrade to a larger flat panel in the not too distant future. So we had suggested placing his primary seats, a pair of recliners, quite close to the front wall where his TV would be mounted, so that they would be in front of the midpoint of his room, which we said is important for acoustics. It's true. And it will also provide him a nice large field of view. While he understands all of that, he's come to the conclusion that he'd simply prefer to sit farther away from the front wall, being that only 7.5 or 8 feet from the front wall just feels too close. So does that make sense? Does it make sense that you want to sit further away from your wall? I don't care. You sit wherever the hell you want.
Yeah, makes sense too. I agree. Sometimes you sit, it's just that thing of you're like, I'm sitting really close to this wall. Like, I know it's giving me the field of view I wanted, but I'm sitting really close to this wall. Yeah. I'd feel comfortable being farther away. Totally fair. Makes sense.
So he wants to sit slightly behind the midpoint of his room, which has led him to the current plan of being 10 feet from the front wall. I forgot how long this was. 18 and a half?
18 feet. 18 feet. Just slightly over 18 feet long. So
10 feet from the front wall, leave him 8 feet behind his primary seats, where he likes our idea of positioning his sofa as a second row. So any thoughts on this plan? Your TV's going to look small, but other than that, it's fine.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing to be aware of is when you're going to be 10 feet away from your front wall and you're going to wall mount your 65-inch display, that is now going to create a 26.5-degree field of view, which is certainly on the smaller side. You're still above what's considered like the minimum for HDTV, which is a 24-degree field of view.
Dude, barely.
But it's going to look a little bit small. However, he has the plan to upgrade anyway, right?
Right.
Now, in his diagram, he's like maybe an 80 to 85 inch. 80 inches would give you 32 degrees. 85 inches would give you 34 degrees. That's pretty darn nice, particularly for HDTV. I'd still say maybe a little bit small for a cinematic movie experience, but certainly not too bad. However, the problem is finding 80 and 85-inch displays these days.
Is not easy.
Yeah.
Not for cheap. I mean, unless you're going to spend a whole bunch of money.
Yeah, that selection has really, really shrunk. I would probably, if it were today, point you towards Samsung's MU8000, which is available in an 82-inch size. I don't know why it's 82, but that's what it is. But that's basically one of the only reasonably affordable, still does HDR. So, sorry?
How much is it?
That one, gosh, what was that? I think it was around 4,000, 4,500, somewhere in there.
You could totally. Why isn't he looking at projectors?
Well, that's coming up later.
Oh, is that coming up later? You could tell I haven't read the questions.
But I mean, there's lots of 75-inchers out there.
Right, 75 you could be okay with. This is what I think.
Which would be a 30-degree field of view, which is okay.
Okay, so he's got his 65 right now, right? And
that's right.
This is what I would do. I would have my 65 for now. I would wall mount it if I could, and then I would tell myself I am going to get a projector someday, and then use the hatred of how small that picture is from where you're sitting as motivation for saving up for your new setup, because that's what you're going to really need to do, because you're not going to find 85 or larger.
Yeah, see, last year there were a fair number of 80 and 85 inchers, and now those models have not been replaced with updates. It's making me think they just didn't sell, or they had production problems or something, and they're like, you know what, 75 is about as high as this market really properly sustains.
Which means you might be able to find an older TV, but then you're looking at like you're looking at outdated technology as you buy it. You may not be able to find Dolby. I mean, you probably won't find Dolby Vision, or you'll get 4K support, but they might not even have HDMI 2.1 and HDCP
Yeah, because like
2.2.
Vizio isn't doing any 80 or 85s anymore. Well, they have one 80-inch in the E series, but that's lower down their lineup. Sony doesn't have any replacements in the 80 to 85-inch range. You have to go back to their 850D from a year ago to get one in that size. So yeah, it's the selection there. Just I don't know. Things could change in a year or two. That's also possible, but right now it's not looking too promising for that 80, 85-inch size.
Right. So he says if he used SVS Prime elevation speakers for the Atmos positions instead of in-ceiling speakers, would that compromise the sound quality? He's thinking that the Prime elevation speakers would be much easier to reposition. So if you wanted to, he could move his seating depending on what screen size he ends up with, and he could move the Prime elevation speakers on the sidewalls to match. But would in-ceiling speakers sound better? He doesn't want any compromise when it comes to sound quality. You love the elevation speakers. Let's just say that.
Yeah, the ability to mount them on the side or front or back wall,
or
and
on the
them
ceiling now. You can mount them on the ceiling now.
Yeah, you could mount them on the ceiling as well. That's true.
If you were really worried about compromising sound quality, I would go for in-ceiling speakers. I think the elevation speakers, I think they're good. Until I get them in this room and say, yes, I have them to my sides and they sound like the sound's coming from on top of me, I'm going to have a hard time believing they're not a compromise. I think they're a fantastic speaker. I still think they're a compromise based on their placement.
I mean, it's still just a speaker over to your sides angled toward you. That's
right.
That is all it is. They built
magical.
the angle in, but that's all it is. It's nothing more special than that. He's also in a 15.5-foot wide. Is not super wide, but it's not super narrow either.
Yeah.
So those definitely are quite wide apart. I actually kind of like the ceiling mount solution idea, though, because he's got a 10-foot ceiling. So
yeah, he does. You're right.
That's up there. He's got the space that an on-ceiling speaker completely makes sense to me.
So that might be your compromise right there.
Yeah.
Your compromise might be, I want to have the ability to move these speakers. You're going to have wedges that are hanging down from your ceiling.
Or from your side or front walls.
I think that
you could temporarily place them and see how it works.
Yeah, I would. Yeah. If I was him, what I would do is either I would get in-ceiling speakers or I would ceiling mount the Prime elevation speakers.
Yeah.
Because if he wants the ability to move them, I still think they should be physically located. You know what? I would get the focal bird things.
The focal birds, yeah.
Get those. That's what you need.
That's less expensive, yeah. Although the Prime elevations have free two-way shipping, so if you just want to try them, there's really no risk.
Yeah, I would get the focal birds. I would ceiling mount them.
Yeah.
That's what I would do.
I certainly won't disagree with that. I love those things.
So that gives you them being on the ceiling overhead, and you still have the ability to move them or angle them if you get like a articulated mount very easily. I think I recommend SVS all the time. I don't think this is right for you. I don't think they're right for you. So we've recommended monoprice in-ceiling speakers and some other brands that weren't too expensive. Of course, those come from the Outdoor Speaker Depot, which we never recommend their outdoor speakers, but we do recommend their in-ceiling speakers.
Yeah. I like the MK650s in particular if you want a specific model from them.
Have we changed those recommendations? And what about backer boxes? Still better to have them or not? Technically, the speaker manufacturer should be able to tell you, or should tell you, whether or not backer boxes are recommended. Most of them will tell you that they're looking for a amount of air back there.
That's right.
Whatever. So that's what you're really looking for. And if they come with a backer box or they have plans for a backer box, that's all they're really doing is limiting that air. Some of them will say it's just meant to be an open cavity. Well, that means that they're expecting 8 feet of a normal size cavity. That's what they designed them for. So if you're putting them in a ceiling that has insulation in it, which it probably does, then you're looking at already a compromised placement.
At least you need a back can, yeah. For any in-ceiling speakers where you're going to be going into the attic and there's going to be the insulation above them there, you, by code, most places say you have to have the back can. So the monoprice speakers, the back can is available. The Outdoor Speaker Depot, they do sell a back can, but I don't know if it's a one-size-fits-all, but they do suggest having a 1 cubic foot of air enclosure behind theirs. So
There you go.
that's not too difficult to construct. 1 cubic foot of air, well, I mean, it's a cubic foot, so that's pretty easy to work out. So, yeah. Either case, I haven't changed my recommendation. If you're looking for lower price in-ceiling speakers, I still recommend the Monoprice Caliber
Right.
and the Outdoor Speaker Depot MK650. And I still prefer to have backer boxes on any in-ceiling or in-wall speaker. So no changes from me.
Yeah, I'm pretty much the same way. He says if, and this is a big if, he ever decided to get a projection set up, he'd still want to have a flat panel mounted on the front wall and then have the projection screen come down on this from the ceiling in front of it. He plans to have his center speaker and equipment on a stand below his flat panel. So depending on how low the projection screen comes down, it might need to clear the front of that stand, which would put the projection screen only about 30 inches from the front wall. About 30 inches from the front wall. That seems kind of close. Although he might.
I mean, the projection screen 2.5 feet out from the front wall because he's trying to clear an equipment stand.
Yeah.
To me, that seems unnecessary. I would have it come down so that the bottom edge of the screen
That's what I'm
is
saying.
right on top of your center.
I didn't finish the question. Yeah, that's exactly my point here. It's like, yeah, okay, dude, go whatever. My friend here. Listen, the very first time I had a projection screen set up, I had a full-sized cabinet that you put your TV on top of. So this is a piece of furniture that comes up to your hip about. Then there's a TV on top of that, and the center channel was directly. It seemed like the center channel was inside of it, so the TV was on top of that. That screen dropped down in front of the TV, but did not go all the way to the stand, and it was fine. I mean, you're only sitting 10 feet away, right? So I mean, you're not, his projection screen's probably going to be in the 92 to 100 inch range, I would guess.
That's what I'm going to suggest.
Okay, that's my guess. So, and you're not going to have any problems with that having to come all the way to the ground, or something like that. Yeah. You know what I mean? You're not going to have any problems. So this is a non-issue.
Yeah. I would suggest what I would have is the screens about 1 foot in front of the front wall because you need some depth for the TV,
right?
And you don't want it literally brushing against it as it comes down.
Sure.
So I'd have 1 foot, which means now you're 9 feet, sitting 9 feet away from the projection screen. If you went with a 100-inch screen size, that gives you a 45-degree field of view.
Just
and
nice.
I'm like, there you go. You're done. And that's a very common screen size. You'll be able to find a 100-inch screen.
So, where would the projector need to be mounted, he asks, since the room is under construction anyway. Wiring for future projectors could be pre-run and simply left unused up in the ceiling, or at the very least, he could run conduit.
Yes, conduit. Very good idea, conduit.
Yeah. But a location in the ceiling is needed, so where would the projector need to go? Well, this is really determined by the projector that you get. If you have a projector that has a large ability to zoom, then you have lots of options. If you get one that's not, so this is this is my recommendation. You run it wherever the heck you want to run it, and then that's going to determine later on what your projector options will be. What it would be good to do is go look at a couple of projectors that are in your price range, that whatever that price range might be. Okay, this is making a difference. If it's $2,000, it's $1,000, it's $500, whatever. Go to projectorcentral.com, look up the screen size calculator for each one of those projectors, and find a distance, a range of distance between all these different projectors that you're looking at, where they can throw a 100-inch screen size up on the wall. Yeah. You're like, find one from BenQ that's in your, find one from JVC, find one from Epson, find one from Optima, or couple, and say, okay, you know what? All of these projectors would work if they're 14 feet away from the wall, from the screen. So go 15 feet back from the front wall, or 3 feet in from the back wall, and you're like, well, you know what? I might as well just put it right on the back wall. It's only 3 feet away. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's real close, and it might limit me slightly, but only slightly. So if it were me, I would just put it right on the back wall. More than likely is where you're going to end up. But do that little calculation first.
If it were me, I'm probably going to be pointing you toward a JVC, an Epson, or a Sony, because those are the ones that do, HDR, 4K resolution. to me, those are the big guns that you're looking for. Those three companies, all of them offer long zoom ranges, 2-to-1 or 2.1-to-1 zoom ranges, and
Right.
all of them line up pretty closely. Which is, if you go with the 100-inch screen size that we recommended,
Okay.
the lens of any of those projectors needs to be anywhere from 10 to 20 feet away from the screen.
Which means round your back wall is just fine.
Yeah, because you've got an 18-foot long room, and this is the lens we're talking
Right.
about.
The projector's going to be, what? Let's say 1.5
Give it
in.
at least 1.5 feet. Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you pretty much put a shelf high up on your back wall, that's going to work for any of these. Even if you went for the 92-inch screen size, went a little bit smaller on the screen size, in that case, the lens needs to be anywhere from 9 to 19 feet away. Now, that's still saying the lens is 19 feet away, which would be beyond the back wall of your room. So
Anyways,
once again,
yeah.
having the projector right on the back wall of your room would be absolutely fine for any of these. So, yeah, lots of latitude there. Should not be an issue. So, in other words, if you want to put it anywhere from directly over your primary seats to the back wall, anywhere
You're
you
good.
want along that span, it's probably going to work.
And if you think about this, think about the size of your home theater. The size of your home theater is right there along the lines of what I would call a fairly large size dedicated home theater for the normal home buyer. Not a lot of people are having rooms that are bigger than 20 feet long,
Yeah.
18 feet long. Okay, not a lot of people have that, which means you're basically going to be in the sweet spot anyways. Anywhere you put it in there is going to be fine because they're building it for you. They're building it for most of you guys out there, honestly. It's just when we get into these real big rooms or real big screens or real small throw distances that we run
Right.
into issues.
Right.
So he's having 2 separate dedicated power circuits installed in his room by his electrician. Anything special he ought to request? Are 2 15-amp circuits enough? Anything special that he can or should be done in order to avoid ground loops?
Well, we know what Ray Coronado would say.
Does he say 4? Did he run 4 or?
Well, even numbers of 20 amp circuits.
Yeah, I was going to say 15 didn't sound right.
Yeah, he always recommends 20 amp circuits and doing it in even numbers because when you're installing the breaker into your breaker box, putting in a 2-circuit breaker is like the same size and the same cost basically as installing a single circuit breaker. So it doesn't make sense to put in one 20 amp circuit. It makes much more sense to put in 2. So you wanted 2 anyway, make them 20 amp circuits. That's the good advice. Do that. That's it. Avoiding ground loops. Ground loops shouldn't happen if your building is wired correctly.
That's right.
They only happen when someone really cut a corner and instead of running the ground wire back to the panel where all the other ground wires from your house are also supposed to be run, someone said, I can save some time and money and just wire it to this plumbing pipe over here.
Right.
Or I can attach it to the metal studs in this basement. Right. That's how ground loops happen, is essentially improper ground wiring. So as long as your electrician runs those ground wires back to the panel and all the other ground wires in your house have also been run back to the panel, no ground loops. That's what should happen there.
Lastly, he asked, do we have any experience with 4seating.com? Are they a good place to buy motorized recliners? And as an aside, how do we keep from falling asleep if the recliners are too comfortable? I fall asleep no matter how comfortable the things are.
I fall asleep in my recliners. Yeah. I don't have any tips for you there, man.
Don't get something comfortable, but then you have to sit on it. Believe me, you do not want that. I haven't dealt with 4seating. Have you dealt with 4seating?
I haven't bought anything from there. I mean, they're fairly popular. They've been around long enough that I don't have any red flags telling me to avoid them. So if they have a model of seat that really floats your boat, I don't have any reason to tell you to stay away.
Do not buy anything you haven't sat in, dude.
True.
There's just I'm telling you, I've made the mistake myself. I'm like, these are gorgeous. I love the way they look. They look like they're so comfortable. They were built for ginormous, very tall basketball player like people. My head, like the headrest part of it, my head hit it but just the very crown of my head would touch it. And I would basically either have to sit up real straight so I could use it, or I would recline the seat and then it would be so far up that I was underneath it. I'm like, these are the stupidest chairs in the history of stupid chairs. And all because I had leather. Didn't like that. just funny color that we loved that nobody else was going to like. It was a disaster. So,
I'll mention one other place, which is a an online retailer that I trust, which is htmarket.com. They have their own line of home theater seating, which is nice, inexpensive, but nice designs, motorized and all that. Again, though, same thing. I agree with Tom. Make sure you've had a chance to sit in one
Yeah.
before you order a whole whack of them. So,
yeah.
well,
right.
he's only getting 2, but
Want your question answered? Send it to question@avrant.com.
Let it go. Heavy knocking, heart stopping, burn up the show. And now we go.
This is AV Rant.
now go out and listen to something.